Hi everyone. So thank you for being here, and we will present you our work about cheating detection for amateur Go players. We will see in the presentation why we only focus on amateur players, because it makes some difference in our work. So firstly, we will just introduce how we started to do this cheating detection work. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many online Go events took place, and some of them were official leagues with important tournaments and rating points. For example, there is a European Team Championship where each country sends best players to play online, and this league is reported to have some cheated games inside, for example. And those games are official games, so they count in the different ratings, so European rating or this kind of things. And even there was some cheating cases reported in the professional leagues. So it's not common, but it's a problem that we need to address and work on how to detect it. So we are, both of us are members of an online Go club in France, so it's an official club from the French Go Federation. And as we have an official league that counts towards the French rating, we have an anti-cheating committee, and we are part of this committee. So I perform some analysis of games to try to decide if players cheated or not. And Colin is helping us with the tooling. After I will present what is our method to detect cheaters after this. So in our league we have around 60 games played each month, and this for 2.5 years, so we have some games. And over 3 years, 2.5, 7 players were confronted with cheating. So we're banned 1 year from the I will take some time to present the current method we have before introducing the new method we want to do. So the Kiseido Go server teams, they already have some tools to give some AI matching data for players. So basically, they look at if a move is in the 5 top moves from AI, then it counts as an AI move, and it gives how many AI moves the player plays. So we have access to this tool, and it gives us some AI likeness, but it is actually really hard to just decide if a player cheated only based on this statistic. We have to manually look at the game, if the games are simple games, complicated games, if the players are already strong, or this kind of thing. So actually what we are doing is that we are looking at many games from players. So when we analyze a player, we look at, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 games of the player. Some of them are just simple online games, some of them are official games. And we try to assess how strong is the player. Sometimes when players are stronger than us, so for example for 5 or 6 time players, we ask professional players to do this kind of work for us. What we do, we never issue a ban before meeting with the player. So we look at the player games, and if we cannot explain how the player is behaving without the help of an AI. For example, we had a player who was really strong during the whole game, and in end game he was playing half-point move when there was still 30 moves to play. So this week we couldn't explain how a player around Sudan would play half-point move suddenly in the middle of a game. So what we do when we cannot explain and we think an AI is used, then we convoke the player to meet them online, and we don't already tell them that they are suspected of cheating, but we ask themselves to explain us like their Go story, let's say, how did they learn the game, how did they become strong, how do they study, how do they play, so they just present themselves. And usually if we're not convinced that this is a plausible explanation for the level, then we tell them, okay, we have these elements and we believe you use AI, and okay, some of them admit and say, yes, I use AI, some of them don't. Okay, we have this interview we do with the players. We think it's quite important because we could have, maybe we could discover something like the player is, I don't know, he studies somewhere or he's playing for a longer time than we think. So we think this is quite important. However, this takes a lot of time and we are only 2 people performing this analysis for 60 games. So we're trying to have like a quick feature.
Thank you, here. So we are going to explain to you the context actual of cheating detection in game and present to you our data set and how we came up with this new method that we are going to implement in our link. So far we found 2 main papers dealing with online cheating detection for game of Go. The first paper by Park and Hall focuses on professional games and uses a closed source engine to analyze all the games. So we took a lot of things from their method and inspiration from how they work, but we wanted to adapt it to amateur games and by using the different Go engine. The second one by Egri and al. is derived metric from the game of Go, and it looks at individual SGF files to get metrics for the players and the way they performed a single game. And there are very interesting things in that, but as we said earlier, our goal is to be able to treat games quicker and in scale. So it's not very useful for us, except when we are looking at individual games. We talk about that a bit later. So our dataset is comprised of 1,400 games. So they are played over 2.5 years. They are in the league in total 124 players. So the ranks, there are OGS ranks, they are going from 20Q to 5 times. And that gives us a total of 7,000 games. After that, we retrieved 100 games for each of these players. So what we do is we take a game, a league game, and all the players who played in the league, we also get up to 100 games from their OGS account if they played such games. In total, there are 1 billion and plus moves that we analyzed with Katago, thanks to introducing it. And we used 50 playouts for each move, because at this level it's quite enough to beat any amateur players in our league. So the way it works is that with Katago we are analyzing all the moves, but before that we do apply some filters, as we've seen in the Park and Hall paper. One of them is that when the AI is confident that the game is already played, so it will be a bit contradictory to what Quentin just said, but when the AI says that basically the game is won at 95%, we decide that all the moves that can be played won't overturn the game, and we don't take them into account. One key difference with the first paper is that we do not discard early moves, because in the context of professional games, there is very strong knowledge of Josephis that we do not have in our amateur league, at least. And so it means that amateur players will make a lot more mistakes in the early game than professional players. So what we do is, for each move, we take the top move proposed with Katago, and we compute the difference with the actual score difference played by the player. So if the top move AI makes a 0 point plus, and the playing move is like 1 point plus or even more, we take this metric and we look at it. So when the played move is above certain thresholds, so it's too close in terms of point loss to the top category move, we consider it to be AI-like. So this is what we call the AI-likeness. And for further researches, we also store the point loss amount and we do some computation of them that we will explain later. So what we can see on this plot is the AILR like that. So that's the percentage of moves that are similar to AI based on this method for a player. So up to 65% of the moves of a player, for instance, this one is going to be similar to AI. And this is the win rate. So how many games they played, they won on all the games they played. All the cheaters that we know and that we confronted before are displayed in orange here. So we see that most of them are on this upper right quadrant, and we can see a correlation between AILR and win rate. But not all of them, I'm sorry because it's behind, but there's one player here, for instance. So not all of them are in that quadrant. And there are also players that we know are legitimate because they display the same strengths in over the bar tournaments that are also included in those quadrants. So we needed to find a new way to discriminate between them, and let's hear.
Okay, so what we tried after this is to measure the amount of, let's say, errors players are making. So the stronger the players, the less error he should make. So what we do is we look at the point lost at each move, but we look at this value, like the logarithmic value of this. The reason is that the difference between a 1 and a 2-point error and the difference between, like, let's say, a 15 and 16 move error is not the same in terms of game impact. So here we have 4 examples of players. Cheater, 5-line amateur, and few players. And we see indeed in these curves, which are the distribution of errors, that the stronger the player, the less error the player makes. However, if we simply look at this average point error, we can see that cheaters are in the same area. However, they are really close from the other players. So for example, if we have a new player that is close to the boundary, it will be hard to decide on which side the player is. And we again see the player in the middle. Let me just explain quickly why this player is in the middle of everyone. It's because most of his games, he was playing with the same level, and suddenly he became like 10 level above his strength. So most of the game in the data set are just regular games, so that's why he's with the group. Okay, so what we will do is let me show you this curve. We'll try to estimate these curves as exponential curves that will decrease. And if it decreases too high, then the player is suspicious. So we approximate these curves with exponential law, and the B coefficient is the steepness of the exponential law. So the higher the B coefficient is, the higher the steep decrease. And if we plot this coefficient, we see that here, so again the players who cheated are in the same quadrant, they are further than the other players. Again, we have the single players that I told before. And here we have 3, let's say, regular players. And 2 of them we know because they play over the board games. So they show the same strengths we trust them. And for example, the third one, he was suspicious before, we did some analysis, and we decided he was, let's say, not cheated. We couldn't, we could explain his level somehow. But however, with this method, it's still suspicious. and it doesn't play on the board game. But we will, like, if we decide like, to really use this in our analysis, I think we will have to analyze these games again, because here is located with the other cheaters.
So indeed, as you see, there are no perfect way of deciding if someone is definitely a cheater or not. But what is useful for us at Anti-Cheating Committee is just simply where to look, which game do we take time on, etc. Because there are lots of games and not a lot of people being able to do the anti-cheating detection. So all these metrics that we computed allow us to look at individual player performance over the time very quickly, so we can analyze all the games and derive the computed metrics and plot them easily to investigate a certain player based on where he is on the previous graphs, right? So, for instance, we can look at the ILR over time for this player, and for instance, we can see that all of a sudden the ILR for all the games are way above the mean. So this is the average ILR performance of that player, and this is the ILR performance of all the people in the dataset, and this is the ILR of the players in the same rating. So we can see that all of a sudden this player has reached really high ILR for individual games. So for instance, in this game, we can see that almost all the moves were considered to be highly liked. And so even if that player, for instance, is not on the previous graphs, is not this player, for instance, you can still look at its history and derive some interpretations about that. So this is not useful for detection because we can't run these graphs on all the players. That would be a lot of curves to look at. But it's really useful when they are suspicious of one player to be able to look at all the history in one glance. So we reached the same conclusion that Egri-Nagy et al., that is that fully automated cheating detection is probably not going to happen because there is a lot of impact on the player experience in the Go. And we cannot be sure that there won't be any false positive cases. However, this will allow some tools and hopefully some methods for anti-cheating committees and teams that are looking into that to be able to scale on a much greater scale. And that results the human plus machine combination that can help us saying that it will be able to scale online games and especially online rated games in the foreseeable future. So our goal is to publicly distribute all this work and the associated code in order for more organizations to profit from it. We know that there are a lot of efforts through Europe, notably with the German Federation, I believe, that made the Fair Play Committee recently. And our goal is to collaborate with as many people as possible, including those with higher level players, because as we said, we start at 4 or 5B range, and there are still a lot of levels above that. And hopefully we'll be able to make some kind of contributive efforts and be able to get more games and know which players have been confronted in other organizations and other leagues, and allow us to grow our data set and our knowledge. Thank you very much for ISGS to inviting us to present this paper. And our friends also at ISSA that did all the analysis of all the games graciously, as well as the French Go Federation, the Online Go League, and the Stones Industrial Online Club that allows us to sponsor this presentation and our work.